Hey, welcome here to Olson Woods, one of Darien Land Trust's public access properties. Has great history going back to 1989 when the property of 13 acres was donated to the Land Trust. For almost 10 years it really just sat as a wild place, and around 2007 we started to get more active with stewardship, which meant clearing out invasive plants, finding what resources we have here to enhance the habitat value for the most species we can support. And because this has water, you see the lake behind me is Olson Pond. It's fed by the Norotan River, which is in upper Stanford and New Canaan headwaters. It's one of the bigger rivers that runs into and through Darien, terminates at Holly Pond. The beauty of it terminating in Holly Pond is that it is open access to the ocean through Long Island Sound. And one of the things that happens in the ocean are these fish that are migratory fish. They grow and mature in the ocean, but they need freshwater resources to spawn. And the fish I'm talking about in particular is called alewife. Alewives have been part of the Indian industry long before this area was settled, and are now very important to just the general ecology, as they support many different species, from birds of prey, larger fish, to mammals like otters and raccoons, everything that lives along a riverbank. So they are really at the low end of the food chain. They exist in big numbers if they can reproduce. So one of the challenges we discovered as we were starting to rehabilitate this property for its ecological value was a way to get those migratory fish here. And I'm working with the DEP starting in 2008. We studied the river, we studied what the obstacles were, and the main problem was what they call box culvert. When they put 95 in back in the 50s, they essentially put a barricade up for migratory species coming back up the Norotan River. So centuries and centuries of migration and ecological function were terminated, and the challenge was to build a fish ladder that would get those fish, or allow those fish to come back upstream. And that was a 10-year project. This lake now is the home to spawning alewives. With the help of the DEP, we've been stocking over the years pregnant alewives. And when those eggs hatch, those little fingerlings become attached to this specific body of water, which means they will only return to this water. It's a fascinating mystery of nature. Please research it, but it was a new discovery for us, and we were excited to get behind that project. So we, with the DEP, sponsored the fish ladder, which was built in conjunction and support of DEP, NRCS, the Department of Transportation, Department of Agriculture. It was an alphabet soup of organizations that really had a say at one point or another. But the Connecticut Fund for the Environment was really helpful in quarterbacking that once we launched it. And a beauty of it being a value to our community is that we engaged with the eco-citizens at the high school to do some of the initial monitoring of water levels at the bridge. And that was a very key component. And we're really lucky we have a lot of motivated youth in this town and motivated families that like to get engaged with projects. Some are as simple as cleaning up, which we do here each year. It's important to keep the stream clear so that the water flows freely through the lake, and to keep the lakeshore clear of obstacles like plastic bottles, for example, which are a tremendous hazard to many different forms of life. If you'd like to know more, come down here. There's a plaque that commemorates this whole process, and I'd invite you to visit Olson Woods and really read the story and enjoy the spot.